Hey guys, this is John, and I'm playing Jubilant in the 5-minute pool on ICC. I decided to open with Knight F3 against Jubilant, and we'll play in English. Not in the mood to play a Sicilian with E4, which is definitely possible if you want to transpose into that. Not sure who Jubilant is. I'll play G3 here, and we'll see if he adopts a single or a double fianchetto. Jubilant is an anonymous GM, 2262. Let's see, do I want to play? Yeah, I'll play Knight C3. So it looks like they're going to go for a conventional hedgehog with d6, bishop e7, rather than fianchettoing, because if they were to fianchetto on the king's side, they wouldn't be playing it this way. So I will take with the queen. I don't want to take with the knight, because I want to keep the light square bishops on the board. So normally here, d6 followed by bishop e7 would be very standard. So let's see if he plays it that way. I think I'm going to adopt the so-called Anderson plan with bishop g5. This is one of the most testing moves in this position. Interestingly, he plays knight bd7. I guess that is one aspect of black's move order, because my plan if bishop e7 was to take on f6, actually. So I wonder if there's any drawback to this early knight bd7. There may not be, because he's just going to play bishop e7 and then castles anyways. Yeah, it's possible there's nothing wrong with this. I'll just go rook ft1, standard move. Queen c7, okay. So they're delaying bishop e7 for quite a while in this position. Maybe queen d2 is what I should play. But queen d2, they could perhaps take on c4. So I think I'll throw in rook ac1 first. And then at bishop e7, maybe queen d2 at that point. Rook c8. So queen d2, queen takes c4 might be possible. Yeah, okay. Better play b3. I still want to pressure d6. So that's why I keep mentioning queen d2, because the plan would be bishop f4 then, basically. If I take on f6, that doesn't achieve anything after knight takes. So let's just go back. He could castle and then after bishop f4 play knight e8, although that perhaps complicates black's development a little bit because the knight would be interfering with the two rooks. Okay, this is interesting. So you're encouraging me to play this move. Are they going to play e5 now? Is that the plan? Knight e5. Okay. Yeah, Jubilant is certainly playing this in a novel, at least to me, a novel way. So what if I take on e5? They take on g2. Maybe I have an in-between move. Knight takes f7. What about take on e5, d takes? And the queen is overloaded, right? It's trying to guard both the e5 pawn and the bishop. So I think I can play this way. Yeah, this is promising. I believe I'm going to be winning a pawn. I think they might have miscalculated. Yeah, because now I have this move. Just make sure I get my move order right. I could take on b7 first, and they took the queen, and then I take. But I like taking on e5 first, because if I get to take here, then I attack the rook and the a6 pawn. So this looks good. Yeah, rook c7, I take on a6. He just resigned. Wow. Okay, well, that was a quick win. 17 moves. Let's take a look. Let's try to figure out what happened with black's move order in that position. Basically starting with a6. So there's a lot of ways to get into this setup. This is just one of them. As I was saying here, black could choose a single fianchetto, as he did in this game, or he could choose a double fianchetto, g6. I have a slight preference for the double fianchetto, although I played both versions of this hedgehog for black. So e6 is very common. Knight c3, a6. So a6 itself is fine, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's a useful move in the hedgehog because it controls the b5 square. And then d4. Playing something like rook e1 I don't think is as good here. I had a game against Mega ZZ about a week ago, this Australian Grandmaster, where I did that in this type of setup, and it wasn't that effective. Because with your bishop on g2, you don't really want to play e4, at least for now, I don't think. It is possible to play that way, but I would prefer to leave the h1, a8 diagonal open. So d4, take with the queen. Take with the knight just really kills a lot of the fun in the position for both sides. This type of position would be very equal. Black could play queen c8, queen b7, and take up residence on the long diagonal if they wanted. And without the light square bishops, the position is kind of deprived of a lot of its dynamic potential, let's say. So taking with the queen. Now I was expecting d6. I think yeah, that's what he played. And then after bishop g5, I was going for a line with bishop e7 and then a quick bishop takes f6. This is the so-called Anderson variation. And I know I have at least one game on my channel where I played this plan, but basically you give up the bishop pair seemingly inexplicably, but the idea is to play queen f4 and then go rook f d1 and just hammer the d6 pawn. And the way it usually goes is like castles, rook f d1, bishop e7, and now knight e4, attacking d6 again. And because of all the pressure on the d-pawn, Black is usually compelled to give back the bishop pair and reach a position like this, which is probably slightly better for White. There was a game that I mentioned in that other video. It was Magnus Carlsen versus, I believe, Vugar Gashimov from 2012, I want to say, maybe 2011, I think 2012, where Carlsen won a nice game from the White side using a very stereotypical plan in this line. So I was trying to do that, but their knight bd7 move is kind of a attempt to take advantage of this move order. So I wonder if there's any way I can somehow play this better than what I did. So I went rook f d1, played queen c7, rook c1, rook c8. So I'd love to play bishop f4 right away, but if I were to do that, I run into e5 with the fork on the queen and the bishop. So that's no good. So that's why I played b3. I'm just safeguarding my c-pawn. He went bishop e7, and now queen d2. So a voluntary retreat of the queen, but I'm preparing bishop f4. That's the whole point of this. So if he were to castle, for instance, then bishop f4. Yeah, and I speculated that knight e8 might be slightly in White's favor just because Black's rook coordination is disrupted. But that's the only way for Black to defend this pawn without disturbing the e6, d6 pawn mass in the center. Bishop f4, the goal of this move would be to try to provoke e5 so I can utilize the d5 square. So I probably would have gone right back to g5 in that case. This may not be that bad for Black, actually. I mean, the computer is showing a healthy edge for White, so it must appreciate the value of the d5 square, but I think this could potentially be playable for Black. But I think his move in the game, knight e5, was a definite mistake. So h6, I don't like h6 because it forces me to play the move that I wanted to play anyways, bishop f4. So that seems like a clear inaccuracy. Yeah, and already he has to be careful. Probably has to go for e5, as the computer is saying, because knight e5 allows take, and his queen is just going to be overloaded. If he were to take on g2, I was planning knight takes f7, this desperado move to win a pawn. Because now my knight is hitting his rook, so he'd have to take. And then I take on g2, White's up a solid pawn with Black's king safety in question and the center structure shattered. e6 is particularly weak. So this would also be fantastic for White. So he took, and I took on e5, and queen takes, bishop takes b7. I guess resigning is extreme, although I can't blame him because he is going to be down 2 pawns. It did cross my mind, like let's say rook c7 is played and I take on a6. My bishop is somewhat misplaced. I mean, I'd much rather have the bishop on this long diagonal where it belongs. It's natural diagonal. But to be up 2 pawns this early against the hedgehog is more than I could have asked for, especially against a grandmaster. So, yeah, I mean, he could have played on, though. I mean, this would at least test my technique a little bit. Queen f4 makes sense, trying to exchange queens. So it should be winning for White, but it's not yet resignable for Black. But I think he was just kind of fed up with his play. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this brief 5-minute video. And I'll be back tomorrow with another Blitz game. Thanks for watching, guys. Have a good week. Bye.